Back here on The Drive on 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio, the free 104.5 The Team at the Capital Region's home for New York sports. Dan Ball with you. Thanks for joining us. While we wade through Major League Baseball, the NBA, the Stanley Cup playoffs, all that, we are still getting you ready for the NFL Draft. We'll be live at Katie O'Byrne's Irish Pub in Schenectady for the first round of the 2024 NFL Draft. And we're super excited to see where all of our New York teams go. Some big decisions to be made across all of New York football. For the latest on the New York Jets as they prepare for their 2024 draft and beyond, we welcome back good friend to The Drive, the host of the Jake Asman Show on YouTube, also a host both on ESPN New York and nationally on ESPN Radio. Well, that's Jake Asman. Jake, welcome back to The Drive. How you doing?
Hey, Dan. Appreciate you having me back on the show. Thanks so much for the invite.
Hey, always appreciate the chance to catch up with you. And I know it's April, but football is a consistent machine. So always great to be able to have you back on the show. Before we get into all the draft minutia and stuff like that, I got to get your reaction. Give me some letter grades for how the Jets did with their jersey rebranding.
Man, I'd give it an A, an A+. I mean, look, nice. It wasn't going to be tough for them to clear the bar of the last 5 years of the jerseys they've currently been wearing. But, I mean, they kind of teased it last year by bringing back, the legacy white and wearing it a couple times.
Yeah.
And the fan base was so excited about that. But to see what they did with the matching, green to go with the white and then adding the all black, it's what I expected. And I'm thrilled, man. I mean, the Jets actually could wear green at home and, look like a real football team instead of, whatever the heck they've been wearing.
Not to mention, like, you can leave these jerseys behind from the last couple of years, and maybe leave some of what those jerseys represented behind in the past as well, right?
It's a great point. I mean, let's also be fair. The Jets were really good during this era of these jerseys. I'm sure fans, we'd like it a lot more.
Yeah,
maybe 20, 25 years from now, we'd be clamoring for them to bring it back. But you're right. I mean, some of the worst seasons of anyone's loyal following this football team occurred with these jerseys on. So went with them and in with the new, which I guess is actually the old, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, love to be able to bring it back. It's been fascinating to watch some of the reaction to it. But before we get to football too, I saw a couple of different posts on your Twitter account or your X account, whatever the heck it is. I'm curious where your other sports fandom is. I saw something about the Yankees and something about the Islanders. So if you're not focusing on football, what are the other teams you root for?
Yeah, so I'm a huge Yankees fan. I'm a huge Islanders fan.
Nice. Huge
Knicks fan as well. So you got baseball season getting underway, which is exciting. But playoffs coming up for the Knicks, who are the 2 seed in the East. The Islanders, looked like they weren't going to make the playoffs, and they had a really nice late push just to get in. And once you get in hockey, that's what's so fun. You never know.
Yeah.
So it's a fun time of year. We got the draft next week, and obviously all the playoff hockey and basketball coming up, so it's a fun time to be a sports fan.
100%. Yeah, we never struggle around this time of year to fill out a sports talk show. I can tell you that much, which is always really good. But all right, let's get to the draft. Jets with the number 10 overall pick in this year's draft. A couple of questions off of that particular pick. First of all, if you're looking at the different options that the Jets have, which ones intrigue you the most for where they could go if they keep that number 10 pick and make it where it stands?
If they stay at 10, I think you're looking at potentially one of the big 3 wide receivers if, Roma Dunze or Malik Neighbors were to fall to 10. It doesn't feel like Marvin Harrison Jr. would fall, but hey, I guess you never know. One of those big 3 is certainly intriguing. And then, of course, Brock Bowers, who I know took a top 30 visit with the Jets yesterday. He's intriguing because, he's a tight end, but, the Bauer... the Bauer boys, as I call them on my YouTube show, they'll tell you he can do everything and line up all over the field, which is true.
Yeah.
I just worry about, Nathaniel Hackett and the Jets, being able to use a talent like that. But he's certainly in play. And then, even with the Jets revamping their O-line this offseason, Tyron Smith has had a lot of injury problems. Morgan Moses, very durable in his career. He is 33. Elijah Vera Tucker, their starting right guards, coming off back-to-back years where his season ended in October. They definitely still could take an offensive lineman there, and it's such a deep O-line class that it would make sense to get a really good player at 10 at that position. So they have a lot of intriguing options if they just stay at 10. And then there's, what if they love a player and they move up, or they can get a team that wants to move up to where they're picking and they can get more picks. So it's exciting because of what they've done this offseason. It feels like they have a lot of options that will definitely excite the fan base.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I want to get to that in just a moment, but do you see it realistic that they could either move up or move back, and do you like the benefits on either one of those moves?
I like the idea of moving up if you're telling me you're only moving up to, say, number 8 with the Atlanta Falcons, right?
Sure.
Because then, maybe you only have to give up one of your forwards this year or a pick next year. You're moving up 2 spots. You probably are in position at that point to get the third receiver off the board, if it's a Dunze or if it's Neighbors.
Yeah.
And it doesn't cost you an arm and a leg, and then you get that weapon, and you still have some extra picks to solidify your offensive line later on in the draft. If you're talking about trading all the way up to get a Marvin Harrison Jr., or maybe they love Neighbors and they want to take them at 5 or 6 with the Giants, then you start wondering, is it going to cost you next year's first rounder to do that?
Yeah.
I think that's probably a little steep. But if the Jets are in love with the player, then I don't know if Joe Douglas, their GM, truly cares about the picks in the future. He might not be here if they don't win. So we might see maybe a more aggressive Joe Douglas here, because his job is definitely on the line, as is the head coach's job. They got to win this year. We all understand that. So
right.
I think trading up's intriguing, depending on how far they got to go. And I still like the idea of trading back and getting some extra picks. And then all of a sudden, you have extra picks. You still get a really good player in a trade-down scenario.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to trade back up, well, now you have the picks to actually do that if there's a player you like that you think you can get. So it adds more flexibility if you take that route as well.
Yeah, I don't mind the benefits on either side of that. Jake Asman with us here on The Drive on 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio. Further down on the draft board, Jake, are there any position groups that you expect the Jets to be addressing as they move into day 2 and day 3?
I think, obviously, receivers and offensive line are the obvious ones. But this team probably could use another safety. They probably could use another defensive tackle. As of right now, they don't have a number 2 running back on this team. I mean, Izzy Abanikanda would be that guy next to Breece Hall, but we really don't know what he is. He didn't play a ton last year, and he was a 5th-round pick. So could they take a running back on day 3? I could see it. I mean, Douglas, every year he's had a draft as the Jets GM, they've always taken at least one running back. So that's another position I'd look at. And I do think at some point, Dan, they're going to look to add a quarterback that's going to probably sit behind Rodgers and Tyrod Taylor for a year or 2. I don't know who that guy is. I know they like Jordan Travis. They like Michael Pratt. Maybe Spencer Rattler could be a guy they have their eye on. But I would expect them to add a developmental quarterback on the the third day of the draft that could sit and learn and kind of be in the pipeline to potentially take over a couple of years from now.
So, Jake, your implication being there could be another, say, roster subtraction at the quarterback position if there hasn't been already? No, come on, that's crazy.
Yeah, I would say Zach Wilson's days are numbered, Dan. I'm shocked we've gotten this far, but I think it kind of tells you all you need to know about where his value is, right? I mean, 31 other teams to basically get Zach Wilson for nothing, and no one wants him. They're just waiting for the Jets to cut him. So that's either going to happen or it's going to probably be, a 7th-round pick swap with the Jets having to eat some of the money, and they trade him during day 3 of the draft. It feels like that's where it's headed at this point with Zach Wilson.
Yeah, and honestly, you nailed the important point, I feel like, on this one, and that I also can't believe we're now in the middle of April and something hasn't happened yet, and he is still technically a member of this group, because I feel like with the work that Joe Douglas has done, it's really one of the last boxes that you need to check before the draft of, hey, let's move on from this. We moved on from other pieces that were weighing us down. So I am surprised that we're still in this spot, at least a little bit.
To me, it's more so just they can't get anyone to take his contract, right? I think someone would take Zach Wilson on their team for like a 7th-round pick and let him compete to be a backup somewhere or be the number 3 quarterback somewhere. But the $5.5 million he has left, if Woody Johnson's comments that kind of don't make any sense. He said they need a backup. We didn't have one. And then he comes out 6 weeks later and says, Zach's talented. We're not just going to cut him and pay him to not play for us. It's like, okay, Willie, but I think the money's the holdup right now.
Yeah.
Actually, the Jets will probably eat a lot of that to facilitate a trade. Just so, from a PR standpoint, this guy was the 2nd pick in the draft. You're getting something for him rather than, the Jets have to cut the 2nd pick in the draft. They'll do everything they can to try and just say they technically traded him when I think we all understand what's actually happening.
Jake, as you observe this offseason to this point, how much better is this Jets roster as it currently stands right now versus where it was at the end of this past regular season?
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of this past regular season, this team was starting Trevor Siemian, right? They were on their 3rd quarterback. They led the NFL in offensive line injuries. I think the final total, Dan, was 13 O-line combos in 17 games.
Holy
that's
cow.
just insane. So, but even if you go back to the beginning of the season when they were healthy, I think this team's more talented. Last year the Jets didn't know who their 5 offensive linemen were at this point. We already know who the 5 are right now. They have a clear number one receiver in Garrett Wilson with Mike Williams there. We know what Breece Hall now is. I mean, last year, people forget the question marks with Breece Hall were out there. Oh, how's he going to be as a running back coming off his ACL injury? And he had 1,600 yards from scrimmage with no quarterback play, a terrible offensive coordinator, no offensive line. So this team is really talented. The defense proved they're for real. I think they got better defensively as much as I like Bryce Huff.
Yeah.
Tom Reddick to me is a much better player.
Okay.
So, look, the expectations for the Jets should be high. If you tell me Aaron Rodgers plays 15 of the 17 games, this team better make the playoffs and win a playoff game. That should be the expectations for a coach in year 4, a GM in year 6. Like, it's time to win. The Jet fans have waited long enough.
Yeah. No kidding about that last part. But quickly, Jake, before we let you go, as we get closer to the draft, where can we find your coverage, and where the heck are you going to be come draft day?
Yeah, I'm excited about this. I will be out in Las Vegas. It's my second home. I want to give a shout out to Surfer Resort and Casino. They're my big sportsbook sponsor. They're flying me out. We're going to be doing some shows during the draft from their sportsbook. So I'll be hopefully reacting to some great Jet picks, in real time on the YouTube channel. So it should be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Super excited for that. Follow Jake on Twitter at Jake Asman, ASMAN. Follow his show on Twitter. Obviously, subscribe on YouTube as well. And every now and again, you'll hear him here on these airwaves, both on the drive and every now and again on ESPN Radio as well. Jake, always appreciate the time here on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Travel safe as you get out to your second home for the draft, and hopefully the Jets give you a ton to react about, positively versus otherwise.
Hey, that'd be nice. I appreciate you having me, Dan. Thanks so much.
Oh, the pleasure is ours. Always appreciate the time from our guy, Jake Asman, talking New York Jets and NFL here on The Drive.